All right, welcome back to Turnbull Garage. So today I'm going to be carrying on with the Suzuki Carry engine rebuild, which is part of the Suzuki Carry Rescue project. In the last video, we got into some pretty technical stuff on the checking the valve clearance, valve lash in the engine, and ran into a problem where I have to order some shims. I have ordered some shims out of Japan, and unfortunately, it's going to be mid to late January before those show up. So I didn't want to wait that long to make some progress on this engine. So today, there's a few things I can still carry on with, and so yeah, let's just get to it. All right, back on the head. As you can see, the exhaust side is back together. I got the shims all ground, and they are perfect. They are all, I got it written down on a piece of paper. They're all 12 thousandths of an inch, which is perfect. I am still waiting for the two shims to arrive, as I say, from Japan. But today I'm going to bolt the head. I'm gonna have to actually remove that camshaft. I'm gonna bolt that head onto the engine and see what I can do to actually just make some progress while I'm waiting for these shims to arrive. All right, so I got the engine and head all cleaned up, degreased, ready to assemble, but let's look at the book. It's interesting, right here in the book it says, if installing previously removed parts, go to step 5. In other words, the bolts, if I'm replacing the bolts, you go through a torquing sequence where you tighten them to 22 foot-pounds and then 35 foot-pounds, and then you loosen all of them and then tighten them back up to 35 and then finish torquing them up to 43.5. Because I'm reusing the old bolts, it says you can, you go ahead and just torque it right to 43.5. I'm going to go a little bit less than that and tighten them basically 2 times. I don't want to go full tightness on one bolt and work my way around. I'll go up to probably about 30 and then do 43.5. Also, it says to apply oil to the cylinder head cap screw threads and seating faces and install. Do not tighten at this time. So it does want me to put some oil on the threads, so I will put a little bit of oil on the threads. It says to put it on the seating surfaces. I've never put oil on the surface of a head or block, and I won't do that, but I will put a little bit of oil on the threads. All right, so let's start putting this thing together. We're gonna start with my dowels. Get those into the block. Next is the head gasket. And make sure it goes on the correct way. Then we'll sit the head on. There we go. And as for the bolts, I'm just going to put a light amount of oil on the threads. Not a lot, just enough to give them a bit of lube. Okay, we'll just tighten these down lightly with my impact gun. So another thing I noticed in the book, which, I don't know, I've never seen this before, they want you to tighten the screws 1 through 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Starting from the outside, working way into the inside. I've never done that before. I've never seen that. I kind of question it, to be honest. It goes against everything I've done. But you know, in this case, I'm going to go with that. So I've got my torque wrench set to 30 pounds. So it's 30 foot-pounds. So let's just, well, that's not going to work. I need a different. Okay, 30 foot-pounds. All right, so that's got that to 43.5 foot-pounds. Next thing I'm gonna do is put my exhaust cam in. You'll notice I had the pistons were not top dead center. I don't have to worry about the valves. When I do rotate either of these cams, I will be rotating the intake cam to double check my clearances, but I don't have to worry about the valves hitting the pistons because I've got them down below top dead center. So I'll put my caps on here. Again, easy to know where these ones go because they're all labeled very nicely. E1 will be here, E2, A3, A4, and the arrow's pointing to number 1. All right, that's tightened up. I'll torque that later. The next thing I can do is put my timing chain tensioner on. I can't find a torque spec for this. It just says to put it in, so I'll just do it tight. Not too tight, just tight enough. All right, next thing I'll do is I'll just put, I don't know if I'll do it on all the way tight, but at least get it in place, is the tensioner guide, or sorry, timing chain guide. So this one is the fixed one. Can only go one way. Next thing I'll do is just lightly put my adjustable or the tensioning timing tensioner on, or timing chain guide. Here's the old one. Again, never throw anything out, old things out until you're done. You need the bushing out of the old timing chain guide to go into the new one. Anyway, I'm just going to put this on loose. And then comes with a new bracket as well, which goes on there. But I'm going to wait with that because I'm probably going to need a lot of slack to get this chain wrapped around. So I'll put these parts on later. Okay, so looking at the back of the motor, if you remember what I was saying, the crankshaft, these threads have to be sealed. It seals around the outside, but the inside or the back side of this face is exposed. I don't know if you can see on camera. There's a hole right here that goes into the block. Basically, any oil that weeps through here is going to run down. The engine sits sideways, so this will actually be at the bottom, and it will drain back into your sump through here. So you have to make sure you put thread locker on these. So what I'm going to do is put the seal in. I'm going to put the metal shim that goes in between here, and then I'm going to put the flywheel on and torque it down. So for the seal, put some clean engine oil on the inside of the seal. A little bit on the face of the crank. I don't want a lot. I don't want it to run really outside the surface of where the seal goes. So really important though, if you remember when I polished this crank, there was quite a groove where this seal runs in that crank face. I don't want it to be there. So the seal's got an open side and a closed side. The open side will go towards the engine. So I just got to work this seal around the face of that crank. There we go. Okay, that's our seal on. Next thing we'll do is put this plate on the engine. Oh, I stand corrected. It goes this way. You can only go one way with the dowels here. So there you go. That's how that goes on. And then my flywheel. All right, next thing I'm going to do is install the pilot bearing into the crank. When you do that, you want to make sure you press on the outer race, not the inner race. So basically what I use, just grab a socket and get that in square. Just get that in there until she's flush. There we go. Now we'll slip this onto the engine. All right, slip our flywheel on. Now these will only go, they should only go one way, although it does look like it'll go anyway. Normally the holes are not symmetrical, and the flywheel can only go on one way because of balancing, but this one looks like it'll go any way. So to be sure, we'll just lightly put the bolts in to make sure they'll all fit. All right, so all I'm gonna do now, I've got the crankshaft jammed with a piece of wood against the block so that this won't turn when I tighten it. It's 50 foot-pounds, and all I'm gonna be doing now is put a bunch of thread locker on here, 242 thread locker. That stuff is removable, but it will seal those threads so that it doesn't, it won't leak oil through. So we'll just snug this up by hand, torque it to 50 pounds, and these will all be done here. Oh, holding this block could be a bit of a challenge, but let's see. There we go, 50 foot-pounds. All right, let's get the other 5 bolts. All right, so with the flywheel installed and all the bolts torqued and sealed, the next thing is the clutch. Now, this kit unfortunately did not come with an alignment tool to align the clutch to the pilot bearing. So what I'm gonna have to do is get something that'll basically fit inside there, that'll stick out, so that when I put the clutch in, I can basically just kind of gauge the center of the pilot bearing and then tighten up my pressure plate. So I'm gonna see if I can find something that'll fit this. If not, I'll make something on my lathe real quick to fit that hole. All right, so I just had some 3/4 inch shaft material. I just turned down a little thing here that'll basically fit through the disc and just slide into that bearing nicely. And that is centered. So with that, I'll go ahead and put the pressure plate on. All right, so that should have the clutch done. There you go. Perfect. Next thing I got to deal with is this idler pull, serpentine belt tensioner. This thing is pretty, let's see, it's not bad. It's kind of seized up. I'm going to pop this centerpiece out of here and see if I can free this bearing up. Otherwise, I'm just going to have to go buy a new bearing. Apparently, you can just buy the bearing itself, not the whole tensioner assembly for the serpentine belt. This is much, it's pretty expensive. You just buy the bearing. So there you go. You've got the outer part of this is the part your belt actually rides on. This is the adjuster in the middle, and then this is your bearing, and the bearing is not good. So I will just go and try and find one of these bearings at my local industrial supply place. And actually, I might even have one at work. I don't know, but that's what I'm gonna try and do, is find one of these bearings. All right, so that's pretty much gonna do it for this video. I can't really go any further until I get these 2 shims. They're gonna be here mid to late January, so it's gonna be quite a while before I put another video out. I want to get this quick video out just to give you an update and do a little bit more assembly on the engine, which was a success. And yeah, just once I get information on this bearing, I'll have that out on the next video as well. So that's about it for now. I hope you enjoyed it. Thoughts or comments down below. And hey, if you haven't subscribed already, think about doing it. Really appreciate it if you did. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching and have yourself a great day.